We are going to talk about enzymatic processes of muscular fatigue and walk you through the myths and facts concerning lactic acid buildup and delayed onset muscle soreness. We will be doing this with a little help from friends. Let's start with an introduction to lactic acid from the doctors.
Great tips, and we're working our way through the ABCs of losing weight. Our entire audience is working out today. How's everyone feeling? Next up is L, and that stands for lactic acid. Lactic acid, it occurs when you're working out really hard. And what happens is if you enter into your anaerobic zone, you no longer have enough oxygen to create energy. So what happens is these little energy factories in your cells, mitochondria, burn carbohydrates. And when they do that without oxygen, the byproduct is lactic acid. And as you're seeing in the sponge here, lactic acid builds up in your muscles. So that's why you get that burn when you're working out hard. But here's the deal. Within an hour, that lactic acid is flushed out of your muscles. So it's not the lactic acid the next day that's making you sore. It's called delayed onset muscle soreness. That can last from 1 to 3 days after you have a hard workout.
Here are some myths about muscle pain. Myth: lactic acid buildup is responsible for the muscle pain experienced 24 to 48 hours after intense workouts. Fact: lactic acid forms in the muscle, but it dissipates quickly, typically within an hour of intense exercise, because the body is able to metabolize the extra lactate. The muscle pain is actually due to micro tears that occur due to the eccentric elongation portion of a series of muscle contractions. This leads to damage of the muscle, which allows us to rebuild it back up.
Here are a couple more myths. Myth: lactic acid appears during exercise. Fact: lactate is a byproduct of glucose utilization. During exercise, your metabolism breaks down glucose to form pyruvate, which can then be converted to lactate. Myth: lactic acid is bad. Fact: lactate is used by the brain and heart as fuel via the lactate shuttle.
I'm going to let Ice-T tell you exactly how it happened.
Yeah. Thank you for the introduction. It's the nightmare walking, psychopath talking. You know who it is. Yeah, and as they said before, during exercise, glucose is metabolized to form pyruvate through glycolysis. Pyruvate. That sounds gang-related. And you don't want to be in a gang. If you were in a gang, you could get shot at, robbed at, stabbed at, killed at. Some pyruvate gets fermented to lactate when oxygen is limited, such as during anaerobic activities. When oxygen is limited or not present, pyruvate cannot as readily be converted to acetyl-CoA, or something like this, and then enter citric acid cycles. This conversion is mediated by the enzymes lactate, dehydrogenase LDH, and the oxidation of NADH2 or NADH squared or something like this. NAD, how about that? This product of these reactions, lactate. Lactate is an unusable molecule, so it is shuttled to the liver when detoxification occurs via the blood. In the liver, lactate is reconverted back to the pyruvate by the reverse action of the enzyme lactate dehydrogenase. During this reaction, NAD is reduced to NADH squared, as we're going to call it. Pyruvate then undergoes gluconeogenesis. Wow, that's a big word. But that forms glucose, which is put back into the blood. Splat. From here, it can be used in many ways. It can be taken up by skeletal muscles during strenuous activities. It can also be used as a source of fuel for the heart and for the brain. If activity has ceased, much like my music career, which is why I am forced to narrate in biochemistry classes on the side for a little bit of extra cash. Anyways, I digress. Glucose can be stored as glycogen in the skeletal muscles or in your ass. Iced tea likes ass. I like this mechanism. You could just ask Coco. Whoa there, whoa there, Mr. Ice, Mr. T, Mr. Iced Tea. The Cori cycle has an upper limit, and once that is reached, that is your anaerobic or lactate threshold. This occurs when the Cori cycle is overwhelmed, when it is overwhelmed.
That's right, Mr. Walken, and that leads us to our next myth about muscle burn. Myth: lactic acid buildup causes the muscle burn athletes experience during high-intensity exercise. Fact: muscle burn is caused by the buildup of hydrogen ions and other byproducts that form during intense exercise. This is what leads to the immediate burn you feel when muscle failure is reached. Some people think this is a set value.
And that is another myth, which states there is a defined point where the body switches from aerobic to anaerobic metabolism, called the lactate threshold. Fact: this is false. There is no defined switch to turn them off or on. There is a mixture of aerobic and anaerobic metabolism occurring at all times. The lactate threshold is strictly the transition period from one to the other. So what does cause delayed onset muscle soreness? Let's ask the doctors.
You touched on it a little bit, but understanding muscles is key in weight loss, and that's why M is for muscles. Your muscle is made up of multiple fibers. Now what happens when you're doing a vigorous workout, you're actually tearing, you're getting microscopic tears in your muscle. And what happens is your smaller muscle, let's say this is your thigh muscles here, going through that period of repeated tearing and recovery, provided that you're eating the right stuff, is going to lead to this larger muscle mass. More Twizzlers for you.
Yeah, good stuff.
All right, so we picked 2 volunteers.
Here's what happens next. Embedded in each muscle fiber, there's a series of nerve synapses that allow the brain to tell the muscle what to do. The message is relayed to the T-tubules, which then release calcium into the muscle cells, and this causes the muscle contraction shown here, followed by muscle elongation. This continues until muscle fatigue is reached. What has been found to cause delayed onset muscle soreness are microtears of the myofilaments, especially at the Z-disc, as well as damage to the muscle connective tissue. That tissue damage may relate most directly to muscle soreness because it may increase the mechanical sensitivity of the muscle nociceptors or pain receptors and cause pain with stretching and touch of the muscle. The delayed onset of the soreness may occur because the inflammatory response process that resensitizes the nociceptors takes some time. Here's how it works. We're in the extracellular matrix looking at the epithelial cells of a capillary located in the vicinity of the muscle. A receptor-mediated response allows the leukocytes to leave the capillary and move into the extracellular matrix and migrate towards the damage for cleanup of damaged material. The aggregation of the cleanup cells and repair cells is the cause of the inflammation.
This is the actual cause of delayed onset muscle soreness. Here are some tips to help alleviate muscle soreness following a workout. This will help minimize delayed onset muscle soreness.
Lactic acid fermentation, you be converting pyruvate into the lactate. Maybe go to your place and kick it in the muscle. Now let's chill with the vandals. Sit back and watch them. Learn that up in this class. Learn that, hope we can pass. Learn that, we want no sass. Learn that, oh, learn that, cell respiration. Get that, strong temptation. Like our awesome creation. Learn that, oh.